Hi, and welcome to podcast number 6. I believe this is. I am Corrie Thorne, the spiritual and emotional consultant, and welcome back again. So, today, I really truly wanted to go to a place of speaking of a truth behind the why of more than existing. And I am beyond the woman who walked the journey of more than existing, who had to go to the depths of the darkness into what we call the dark night of the soul. It kind of, this is the thing that happens after a spiritual awakening. When you go through those big changes, you're like, oh, I got it. I made it there. And then you become very aware of your actions, your behaviors, and every single day and every moment, you start to notice the habits, the conditioning. You notice your own words. You become aware of, even when you become an asshole to your own, you become a bit of an asshole with your own words, your thoughts, and how you speak to others and the expectations that you have upon others to fulfill this new comfort that you're living in, this new life. It's like, oh, those people, they're just not getting me. They don't understand and they'll never get it. And it's almost like you get a bit of a snobbiness. Like there's this sense of I'm here and you're not, and you'll have to catch up to me. And that's such a lie. Just gonna say it's a lie. It's not a truth. Everybody is on their own personal journey. And because you have so called awakened and become to this certain place of awareness, it doesn't make anything that you're doing in this world um, any more valuable, or it doesn't make you any more of a priority over anyone else, or it doesn't make you more in, I guess, it doesn't make you a better person than someone who is not. And this is where we get lost in spirituality. And I feel like this is where we kind of come into this whole woke and canceling and those type of things is that, oh, how can these people not understand this way? And how can you not get that? And oh dear. Oh dear, I find myself wanting to say so much because of course you're getting Corey in here. You're not getting the channel. You're getting me. And so when I when I start to speak of this and start to look, I look at the why behind writing more than existing and the journey. And I remember something so valuable that came to me in a form of a messenger from what I call the messengers on earth, the humans that just show up into your life and just pass on a message. And the person said this to me, and it really truly changed my journey. Yesterday, you heard me speak of the love anger and the difference between anger, being angry at the world, and a love anger. And so when I wrote the book More Than Existing, when I first start writing, it was the writing of the emotional dumping ground, the garbage can of my work. And so I have two journals that I keep. Well, sometimes I actually have three journals. So one is the garbage can. It is the place where I dump all of my garbage. It's where I let the day to day. It's that whole essence of I learned in life that I didn't have many places where I could truly trust that what I needed to just get out and what I needed to just release in just spewing it out of just having it vent could not pass over my lips into the ears of many people because it seemed to be repeated because I was supposed to be this so-called awakened being and I wasn't supposed to have a shitty or a bad day and I was supposed to be everything to everybody and still wasn't true. I was still human. And so venting doesn't mean it's anything personal. It doesn't mean you really truly mean what you're saying. It just means this is what I feel in the moment. This is what I'm feeling like. And yes, I may be acting like I'm three, but it's what I'm feeling and I don't like it and I need to get it out. And so instead of handing it over to people and leaving that energy on people and the responsibility for them to stay quiet about it, I went and got a journal that I made into my dumping ground journal. And that journal became the place where I just spewed it out. And then I had my more enlightened journal. And that's where my books truly found their lives. So when I started writing More Than Existing, it was a true dumping ground. It was everything of how the world had done me wrong, how my parents had made me the number two child, forgot me, boo-hoo, all those things that took place. And it was on that journey when I found spirit God consciousness, the angels calling me out on my bullshit. Kind of really, truly say, really, really, do you like, was your life really that bad in some of these places? Like, did you know what your parents actually sacrificed for you? Did you know what they actually did? So, can you not find some golden nuggets? Can you not find something good to say about somebody? And then I realized, where the hell did this bitterness come from? Where did this arise from? And I noticed there was a lot of things and a lot of whys and whats and hows and that I had to question in my own self. And that began the journey of taking ownership and responsibility for my story. So More Than Existing went from being a book of anger and a book of, somebody needs to pay for what happened to me, and the whole world will now be responsible to that. And from being an emotional dumping ground to being an inspiration of when you allow those desires, allow those thoughts to become healed and to become powerful messages of love, you return to the essence of taking that desire and you allow yourself to become angry in a different way. And you become angry with why it even happened to your parents, why your parents had to go through certain things, why your siblings had to go through certain things. And what I found was compassion. And I start having a compassion like no other. I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine, like, how did my brother go through that? And yeah, if I was in his shoes, and so you start to see, if I was in my mom's shoes and she was 20. So More Than Existing started a journey of truly becoming a place where it became the book that I wrote about learning more than existing beyond your fears and your insecurities. And realizing how much of our fears and insecurities was leading the way. So as I got farther into this journey, I noticed myself starting to write almost like writing memoirs about myself. I start speaking about myself as a celebrity to the cause of my fight, like, oh, I did this and I did that and I've accomplished this, and I'm like, and then I wanted to put those out. They went out as bios. Yes, they did. They went out as bios about how great I was. And the list got longer and longer and longer. So when I started women's wellness, I noticed that I had a whole long list of my uh, accomplishments, my certifications, and how credible I am, how credited and incredible I am to be on that stage. And then one day I woke up, and I woke up in a different way. I woke up with the sense of my relationship with Jesus had become stronger than ever before. And I don't want you to take that word and take it and compare it to anything that would have been caused to cause you fear throughout the years through religion or through being forced into that sense of believing what Jesus is. I want you to think of a healer. And so my relationship of the light that was beyond the light of the light of the reflection of the man that was after the crucified, after being crucified, and that surrendering over of when you take yourself off the cross. And through that light, I started to see that I am really, you know, just another person. And so the spiritual awakening journey took a real big turn and a big change. More Than Existing in itself was when I started to write the hooks of More Than Existing. First, it was like that whole, are you ready? Are you ready to more than exist? Come with me. I can take you on that journey. And so More Than Existing then truly started to change. And I felt this subtle softness that started to come in. More Than Existing, beyond your fears and insecurities. I noticed the fillers were leaving. The need to be was leaving. The need to become was leaving. What I came to learn was a lot of my work and a lot of who I was. I had a lot of what I was following and what I was becoming a part of was the beings outside of me that connect to us. And not all beings are coming for the highest good of us all. And so, just like all the human beings, they're not all in our lives for the highest good or for the best things as well. And so the anger that you have towards everybody who represented someone who hurt you, you have to look at the people who intentionally caused hurt and pain, and they're not the reflection of people that unintentionally hurt us. So there's a big difference in those beings and how we look at life. So becoming a guide, become an emotional consultant is that, I'm an expert in women. I'm an expert in the emotions and the spiritual connection, the lack of spirituality that we have, or the sense of when we become so in that think we become so there and we got it all, how judgmental we become, how we truly start to not knowingly or not consciously, but we are then start judging our family and friends that, oh, I'm here and you're not. Ooh, look at me. And so you kind of start to break away from the pack and from your clan. And now there's when you are going through these changes, you notice that your friends may change in some ways, but your near and dear, one thing about spiritual awakening and becoming this is called acceptance. It's called compassion and kindness and returning to the dignity of humanity in such a way that you don't look down on people. You can become an inspiration, and all you got to do is look back to where you were and what you have done in your life, and you may have moved beyond it, but the rest of the world remembers where you had been. So when you start to forget and you become high and mighty and you think you're better than everybody else, the world still remembers the person who, I said, the world still remembered the 13-year-old girl who drank a bottle of London Dock alcohol and ended up, passing out. They remember the girl who had the affair. They remember they remember that 20-year-old that had the affair. They remember the girl who went through the abuse in many relationships. They remember the girl who, those who would know it, the girl who had the abortion. They all remembered her. And so when I would, if I were to pretend like, oh, well, that never really happened, let's just pretend that didn't happen and let's just say I'm awakened, then I would not be living a truth. And that really starts to tarnish and taint because you're not healing, you're hiding. You're not moving beyond, you're suppressing. The honesty, the integrity, truth came in with more than existing. When I learned to write the truth of taking ownership and responsibility and stepping up and saying, I'm responsible for that. And so everything that I had placed upon even my mom that, oh, you need to become this and you need to do this, it's, you should be a mother to us and you're supposed to be the influence and you're supposed to be the one who influences the kids and da 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 because you're supposed to be that woman to us. That's your job, that's your role. And then what I noticed was with clients and with people that other women I'd be working with, whether it was in hair or in spiritual work, I noticed I wasn't having the same conversation with them. With those women, I was saying, oh, you know what? I get it. It's okay. It's like you can't be everything for everybody. And until you can truly make peace with your past and until you can, see your worth and your value, God, I had so much compassion and love for other people. And then I recognized how much I didn't have for myself, how much I didn't have for my mother. And I then start to realize I was conditioned through that by my mother, by her experience. And I took a good long look and I looked inside and said, somebody has to break this freaking cycle. No matter where she is, no matter what she's going through, she's my freaking mother and she's my mom. And she sacrificed a lot to raise us. And so when I started to speak that way, I found this authority in my voice. I found myself rising up. And that was the same thing with the connection to the beings and knowing which beings were which channels and what was channeling through and what information I was getting in this world and outside this world really truly came from a place of unconditional love because it didn't come with a master manipulator energy. It wasn't like, oh, let me try to fool you. Oh, are you serious? Are you true? Are you sure you want to do that? It was that call me out on my bullshit. Listen, if that's what you're going to do, then this is what's going to happen. There is a reaction to, there's always going to be consequences for your actions. There's consequences for your words. So when you lash out at people because you think that you've achieved this enlightenment over everybody else, the consequences of that is you're going to have to rise to something else. That dark night of the soul journey brings you into the place of recognizing, seeing yourself in situations where you were standing, thinking that you had achieved this enlightenment, this greatness over other people. And you were saying, oh, those kind of people, I don't associate with those kind of people. I don't become that kind of person. Such bullshit that we do. And I'm sorry there's some swear words, but that's the power of it and how it has that hold. So when I wrote More Than Existing, I wrote that book. I wrote it about, saying, here I am, I'm in this situation. And yes, we both did things wrong, but no one had a conversation about it. Nobody talked about it. And now we've both got these stories and we're all living in these stories and we've all created these stories. And that's become the way that we live our lives. And this is not working. someone has to break the cycle. And so we're all adults, we're not five. So, yes, they may be those roles. And yes, they may be these people in our lives. They may be parents, they may be friends, they may be siblings. But we're not two. So it's time for us to emotionally and spiritually grow up and to take action for our own lives, because some of the beings on the other side are even more youthful than others. And so old wise wisdom channels through me, but old wise wisdom is the part of the channeling of me. The truth is that I am almost 50 years old, and that's all the human knowledge and experience that I have. And where I learned some of that knowledge and some of that experience were through people who were conditioned, who had very much infused the work with their opinions and their thoughts and their views, and how they agreed and disagreed, didn't how they agreed and disagreed. And then I start to realize we're teaching this everywhere. We're teaching the next generations to not question them, not to question things, not to question themselves, just to believe it and just live by it and instill it. So I found myself then starting to notice even more again that I had to return to something called my soul language. And I had to connect to myself in a way of loving and go back to how I even wrote the book. And I wrote the book from that place of being able to say, okay, Corrie, now where are you still doing this? And how is this still happening? And why are you still allowing this? And there's going to be times when you're going to have to say, you know what, fuck it and fuck you. That's going to be there. But other times it's like, are you freaking kidding me? What do you think you're doing and who do you think you are? And there's a lot of honesty that comes with that. And there was a lot of, then I noticed that when I would call myself out, instead of getting angry, I would learn to laugh at myself and say, oh God, when are you going to learn? So in that whole journey, I found myself really truly starting to notice that I had moved beyond the lies, the half-assed truth, all of those things that really truly keep you from being able to live a life in the light of your truth. So when people ask me now, well, what do you mean you live in the light? Does that mean you're like better than us? And no, no, it doesn't. It means that I live in the light of my truth, which means I hold myself accountable and responsible for every single action, reaction that I have. I try to catch it, I try to become aware of it, and I make a note to myself of when and where did I experience this before and that this is not really real. Now, I have not perfected life. I'm not going to tell you I have. I said that I had taken the journey to the dark night of the soul. I went into the depths of the depression that I had been through the narcissist in me, which we all have that narcissistic tendency because we always have that desire to make the world work the way that we want it to work. And hopefully, we hope that we want everybody around us to become a part of making us comfortable and making our world comfortable. And so we've kind of started to infuse that narcissistic energy out there. And now we're kind of like, is that really going to serve the highest good? And we're kind of seeing a whole world of entitlement in a lot of ways. And it's not just one generation or the other. We all have a sense of it on the youth when we start out, and then life starts to teach us. So, and then life starts to teach us different. It knocks us off our high horse. So when you start to become so when I started to stop when I stopped becoming the imposter of my own light of my own life, and I started to find this way back home to me and starting to live beyond the journey of more than existing. So when I wrote more than existing, I was well on the way, and I started to notice when I was writing if I started to slip out of the channel and started to slip into me, and I start noticing things like, well, if they didn't do this to me, or if they didn't show up to this, or if they had have just been decent, or if they had to da 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 da, that started to sneak in, and then I would have to exit out. So the journal that I would have, the dumping station, was that I could write it, I could exit out. I can X that out, put a big X to it and say, that's not turning, that's not working. And then take the X and take the book and you turn it until it looks like a cross. So then you're like getting to that T point. Now you have the opportunity to turn this into a graph and into the chart. And you can write from there and take that graph and start writing the graph and saying, okay, all of these words is what I just used. Now separate those words into words that are of my the words that are in the light and not in the light. Like which words are really truly me and which ones are the imposter of me. And when you start to do that, you start to notice how much of that imposter energy can take a hold of us when we start to get that sense of I'm there and you're not, or that sense of insecurities and fears that start to sneak in. Whether it's the fears and insecurity of trying to be better than everybody else, or trying to be more, or trying to show off in some way, or to justify, to validate who you are, or it's that insecurity fear on the other spectrum, that where you're curled up in a ball and you won't put your head up, you don't want to look up at people and you're afraid. And I always say I see both of it. And the ones that are sitting in the corner with their head down, I tend to be more drawn to that energy rather than the ones that are up there, speaking about how they know more than we know, and I'm better than you, and I got it figured out, and let me tell you how I did it, and I got it all figured out, and I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm doing this because I am this and because I am that. And I'm like, and I tend to go to the one with their eyes down, because the one that is the one that's more up there and out there with with all this advice for everybody on how to live their lives, is I was her. I was her, but I was also this one over here. But because I was that quieter one, because I was the one that was shamed with my head down, I created the one with the big mouth that talked all the time, that had to have the big list and everybody had to know who she was and blah, blah, blah. I created her to protect the little one. I created her to become that. And so the anger was, I was speaking up. I was trying, just like I did all the way through school, all the way through life. I was always there for that so-called underdog. There is no such thing, by the way, as society tries to tell us that somebody is an underdog. They're just scared to be seen. They're shamed. Um, you know how groups do that, even from children to adults. Um, that happens all the time, by the way. That's another whole new podcast. And so I was trying to be the voice for that victim. I was trying to be the savior, the woman who was the hero, that was going to be the Joan of Arc energy, I call her, to protect that little one who was hiding in the corner, that was shamed, that was fearful, that wasn't allowed to be her in whatever way, whatever that story means. And so I was trying to be more. I was trying to be more than that. So I was trying to not just more than exist. I was trying to be more than existing. I was trying to be more than all of that. I wanted to be something bigger and more. And when I start to recognize that these people that I would see that were trying too hard, I'm like, oh, fuck, that gets on my nerves. Like, I really don't like that. And I don't want to be around people like that. And then I stop and say, well, fuck, obviously you don't want to be around yourself. Obviously, you don't want to be around you. You don't want to hear yourself talk, because you have some of that. We all have to be able to look at the parts of us that we don't want to look at. And that is our problem. We don't want to face ourselves. We are the hardest person to have to face without criticizing ourselves, without judging ourselves. So with love and compassion and kindness, as I had for the weak, the victim of me, I had to make the choice to look into her eyes, to get very, very up close and personal with that loud, that bold Corrie, and say, okay, now why and how is this serving you? And what is this doing to you? And how far away from home, from the home of you, is this? And that started my journey um, with Teresa of Avalon. And so as I started taking my journey with these sisters and these nuns that don't live on earth anymore, I found myself being really truly taken to humbling. Is when the golden palace started to appear. It is um when this Stephanie angels and all of this other things started to happen. And you don't have to believe in that either. This is just my journey. I'm just telling you my journey. Whatever appears to you, you could just fall off your horse and get trampled over, and you just got to wake up and you just got to just be real with yourself. Was that I found myself having to look beyond and look deeper. And so more than existing truly opened my eyes and made me aware of a journey that I would have to take, because I wrote that book with such love and compassion to be able to look past the bad behaviors, the insecurities, the egos of the people that I loved. But I didn't take it to look beyond mine. I was creating a bigger and bigger one for myself, because I had such a fear of facing me. And once I had to face that part of me, and not just the part who grew up, not just the past, I mean the one I was living in, existing in that moment. And when I start to look at her, um, I started to realize that soul language that I speak of was unconditional love. And how many times had I sold my soul to please the fears and insecurities of other people? But how many times did I not make myself a priority? How many times did I not make a commitment to me? And I would make a commitment to my work. I had such a commitment and dedication to my work, to being there to help other people, to be present. But in the meantime, I have all these you know, projects of compassion and love that are for myself and that are really truly important to me that probably might not make a pile of money, might not make any money, and may not ever get published or go anywhere. But they're my writings. They're the other books. They're the books that have the sketches, the artistic work, the true writings, the writings of love. But I was making all kinds of time for the dumping station, but I wasn't making time for the books of love, the channeling. And when I was channeling, I was coming in here and creating lives and giving away the channeling or going right to my students and saying, "Oh my God, I got something for you and I need to teach this to you right now." And the great spiritual masters who and teachers, healers that walked before us was trying to help me. And I felt so sad when I realized that I was getting so far away from myself that I was believing that maybe I was trying to be more godlike. I don't know. But I was becoming more and more less tolerant, less compassionate, less everything for other people. And then I realized that it wasn't them, well, what I thought I was being for them, but it wasn't. It was I was really losing it for me because I wasn't committed to me. I wasn't making any attachment to me. I was attached and I was growing and making a body that could be strong and powerful enough to make the voice of the channel that flows through me be heard. And yes, that's a part of me. So in creating the oracle cards and then having them made and sitting on a screen and on a split screen having each and every card of the everyday goddess come up, I started to notice that, you know, they were a bit of an inspiration to me. They inspired me, but they also showed me my attitude and the attitudes adjustments that I've had to give myself, and also where I still had attitude, and that not to tear myself apart, but to grow, to learn, to become to become nothing, to understand the energy and the power behind the words such as love. And how do you know love if you don't really fully understand what it is to be loved, what it means for someone to be committed to you and to have full commitment to you? And then I start to notice the places in my life where the people that I wanted to be committed to me couldn't because they weren't committed to themselves. They didn't understand how to love themselves enough or how to be healthy in their own bodies. And so how could they be committed to me and how could they make a commitment to do some like be in a strong relationship even with who I was. And so I didn't need to become more. I needed to become less in the world where I was more than existing. So in the world where I had now start to more than exist, I needed to become less. I needed to become small. I needed to become humble. And it was through the eyes of the places where I noticed where I was still being judgmental and critical and criticizing others and that I loved in hopes and wants of them achieving this, you know, why can't you all be in my program? Why can't you just listen to me? And so those kind of energies is what I'm speaking of. So through looking through those through those stories and scenarios, um, I really started to inspire myself to look back through the stories and look at life and see that need to become and just to let go and to just have a period where I just said, you know, just be, just allow yourself, just become. You'll always be a nobody to somebody, and you'll always be somebody special to somebody. But unless you make that commitment to you, you'll always be trying to be a somebody to everybody, and you'll always be a nobody to you. And when I got that statement, I truly knew then that the power of awakening, if you look at the essence of the Jesus energy, walking towards, you know, walking towards a different way of looking at things, to not have fears and insecurities ruling your life. And so when I wrote More Than Existing, it was all about the journey to a crown, a surrendering over your fears and insecurities. And it was also about honesty, integrity. It was about taking ownership and responsibility and those half-ass lies, those white lies we tell ourselves and how they turn and snowball into something bigger. So even when we believe we're there and we got it, The moment you step up to judge, to criticize somebody, stop and pause and think, if I got it, I would not be criticizing. If I got it, I would not be having such a desire for somebody else to be here. Some people are here not to get it in this lifetime, but doesn't mean they're not worthy of the same love, the same life, and to be a part of this world in a big way. It's not our choice. It's not our right to, we don't have that right to judge, to decide who's enough and who's not enough for this world. And but we also know we have the ability to be able to have our healthy little boundaries. But today and every day, what I can tell you now is that through more than existing, through the honesty, through the integrity, through returning to restoring the integrity in the relationships between myself, my mother, to the best you can, or to your family members, or to the people that are in your lives, by returning integrity to the relationship with yourself, it then is what we call in more than existing. It's the foundation work. You return to the foundation. And it really truly is about restoring that integrity so that you can stand tall and still be small. You can stand tall and we walk beside others and not feel the need to have to be more, but you can also stop apologizing for being a bright light, for being enlightened, for being on this journey, for making the sacrifices that you made, or for being you. And so I stopped apologizing for being me. And when I did that, I stopped trying to be so big. And I started to allow myself to accept and make a commitment and start to commit to this journey in the way of allowing myself to live in the live in the light of my truth and to walk my truth with honesty and respect. And that this woman who I am today, I'm not a dumping station, not for myself or for others. I have a journal for that. I am the woman who takes that X and turns it, and I walk the middle. I walk that middle road, and I stay in the center of that crossroads, and I make a choice to walk the journey in the path, knowing that I always have to come back home to the heart. And when I get away from myself, I have to return to the heart and ask myself the tough questions. And so, really, truly, if you want to be, you want to be the hero, the savior of your life, you have to start to learn to ask yourself the tough questions. You have to question and become honest with who you are today, and you have to call out the version of you that you are presenting as as the best version of you. You have to be willing to call out that person if there's any emotional connection, any thought to that you're better or more than somebody else. And so, because your attitude will always show. And so the attitude adjustment of the cards comes from the divine, just like the attitude adjustment that I always get is from the divine, not from my family. Well, they're good at humbling us too. But to know that we can live in this light and that we can be these beautiful human beings and that we have the opportunity through our growth to inspire other people is what allows me to make more and more of a commitment each and every day to live in the energy of helping myself to become the person that I'm here to become, to be what will be asked of me and what will be needed for all of who I will be in the future. And I hope in some way that this inspires you today to take a good hard look at even who you are today and question yourself with love, compassion, and kindness. And how is this serving my highest good? So, thank you for being with me. And I will be back again tomorrow or the next day. So, this is Saturday, March the 27th. I'm recording this podcast. So, I'm hoping to do another one tomorrow. I want to fill up this beautiful new website, She Is podcast, because this is truly coming from the truth, from the light, from who I am as a human being who is honored to be human and honored to be a part of this world, and someone who has truly decided to make a true commitment to just being the best human being that I could be, to live with integrity, dignity, love, hope, and faith in myself and the world out there, and to love as much as I possibly can. Much love to you all and have a beautiful day. Bye bye.